Hello, friends.
I'm Taylor.
And I'm Brittany. Together, we are two sisters who are here to help you learn some tips and tricks to help navigate this crazy journey called life.
We bring the perspective of a licensed mental health counselor, aka therapist, and a new mother.
And a slightly eccentric mom of two. When you combine us as sisters, we like to consider ourselves as quite the dynamic duo. So join us as we talk about all life has to offer.
Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and hit that follow, like, or subscribe button wherever you listen to podcasts or get your updates from. You can also see all of our expressions posted on Uhane channel
on YouTube.
Yeah, that's the one.
If you're liking what you hear, leave us a 5-star review. It helps us know what content you like and spreads the love to others to get resources and help for their mental health.
Guys, this is ridiculous. We're not allowed to read our intro anymore.
So for those of you who don't know, Taylor and I are sisters is on YouTube. It has been for a little bit, but Taylor and I don't really cater when we're recording to YouTube. So we have had some feedback from our executive producer, aka
my husband,
that we need to be more joyful on the camera,
not just read.
So
how do we remember all
here
that?
We go.
Be prepared for some butched openings.
We're still laughing about it. This is new feedback for us, right? As we were sitting down for like,
look good
to record. We're like, missed that memo.
I didn't realize I need to look.
Someone better go pay for some facials.
This is so funny. I actually do need some makeup and some Dr. Jart's.
I think that this
red
is an
cream.
excuse.
So
Yeah.
hello, YouTube.
Hello.
Thank you for being my shout outs.
So sorry for our little
giggle
there, but we're on our second episode today of our parenting series. So we had 2 episodes. Last week we had talked about parenting with empathy. And so this week we're going to kind of dive into more about like different parenting styles and what it looks like. So how to apply our lessons from last week.
Yeah. So just a quick recap. We talked about different parenting styles is probably what we're going to dive into first on this one because we were kind of dabbling at that at the beginning.
Yeah.
But we talked about like what empathy is, why it connects us as people, but then also the need for boundaries, like
and balance.
Yeah, you can't just have one or the other. Like there's a lot of push, I feel like, with our generation specifically on I'm getting hiccups, I'm sorry, on gentle parenting.
Oh yeah.
And that's what we're kind of trying to help balance out. Like gentle parenting has its time and place with the right perspective. And that's what our first episode is a lot about, of like, it's good to have, like, you have to have empathy when you're parenting, you have to have the compassion, but you also have to have a balance of expectations and boundaries. And that's
which is really hard sometimes. I mean, I'm coming off of a trip at Disneyland with meltdowns from 8-year-olds where gentle parenting, setting those boundaries, not having the tools needed
involved in that one.
In a theme park. Whew. Yeah. So let's dive in.
That was fun.
That was a lot of fun. The cheese was not melted enough. That's what set it off for our meltdown of epic proportions.
But I think that's where like there's always a good example, right?
As we're laughing, like
it's just funny. I think it's just funny because it's just the reality of all of our things. Like you look at the situation when your kid is having a tough time, you're like, really? We're fighting about cheese right now, melted cheese. And like there's been so many times with Anson where I'm like, this is what we're dying on. Got it. Like
we are dying on the hill because the cheese was not melted enough, but yet it was so melted we couldn't peel it off the cheeseburger. But it was worth an epic meltdown. So
it's really fun.
That was a hard one for me as I remembered my own like advice that we had talked about. Well, not my own advice stuff. I know I need to work on that. Like gentle parenting, but then having that balance and like setting the firm boundaries. And yeah.
How'd that go for you?
Okay. He went on some boundaries, but he did not get an ice cream.
I think it was interesting too, because you could really see in that moment, because I mean, we're sisters and we're a collectivist family. So like, I looked at him and was like, man, if my kid ever talked to me that way, and Brittany's like, you could put him in anti-timeout. And I was like,
and she did.
Anti-timeout? I guess they're doing it. And, but you could really see the variance too of other people's styles and how they respond. And you can just see, people's natural inclinations in that moment. So gotta love melted cheese, guys.
Melted cheese.
So when we're talking about this, I often think of the parenting styles, and there's this, guys, I think it's not Bowlby. Bowlby. I think it's Bowlby, John Bowlby, who came up with these like things. And I think there's another theorists. I don't remember the people's names. Pregnancy brain is broke, guys. But there are different types of parenting styles. So the first one is authoritative, which is the balanced one, right? You want to have expectations and boundaries, but you also don't want to be a hover mommy, but you also don't want to be too permissive, and you don't want to be too passive and neglect, which makes it sound
so hard. Yeah.
You're trying to play this game of always balancing out. Really hard, right?
Yeah. It is hard.
No, this is
having that balance.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is what I tell people is it's not so much about being perfect in balance. It's about knowing where you lie on the spectrum so that you can try and even yourself out to get closer to that middle ground. Right.
Yeah.
Because we're all going to be naturally towards one or the other. So like the other one is permissive, which is letting the child set the expectations. Like it's still very loving, but you're like, it's a very gentle parenting style where it's.
And that sometimes I lean a little more that way. Like
that is yours.
Yeah.
That is definitely yours.
I try to be more authoritative.
Mine is a mix, honestly. Mine is I lean towards permissive until I get fed up, and then I lean towards authoritarian, which is like, these are my expectations, you will abide by them. And it's interesting.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of mingled that way based off of treatment centers that I used to work with.
That should make sense.
Yeah. I became more rigid. So then so knowing that I kind of have both, it evens me out actually, which is good. My naturally lean permissive, but then
having that authoritarian training
I'm authoritative now. Authoritarian is the hover one where but then there's also helicopter parent, which
I had been when Adeline was little for sure.
100%.
Firstborn.
100%.
Yeah.
Everything. Don't do this.
Don't do this. Don't do that. You'll get hurt. Oh, don't do that. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
And I worked on that because I was able to recognize it.
Yeah. You pull back a lot. And then Ansa was able to explore more, but it's interesting because it's good to know what your inclinations are. Like yours is definitely permissive mixed with the helicopter. You're not going to really be straight up one of them.
Not really helicopter anymore.
You were.
I was.
Yeah. But you evened out, right? And that's where it's like.
I was so young though, I think, when I had a baby too, that I feel like I had this like, we'll go into a therapy moment, but like, I feel like I had this pressure to perform that I was like, I'm such a young mother that I have to like really overperform to be seen as a real mother.
But you're also like, if you want to pull into personality things, you are a type A mixed with people pleaser.
Yeah.
So like you roll your eyes, but being a type A and a people pleaser at the same time, that's what causes that weird pull where your type A was a helicopter hover. You will do what I want you to do. And then but I want you to be happy so you can do whatever you want to do. And that's why you had the weird pull.
So weird. Yeah.
Versus mine is what's the welfare of everybody at play. So you can see why mine are like the two intermingled, which creates the perfect authoritative style. But again, that was an accident, guys.
Mine's like a permissive trying to be authoritative.
Yeah, so
I pull out moments where I'm like, man, I really rocked that. And then I pull out others, I'm like, darn, I screwed that up. And he just walked all over me.
You look at, seriously. He played you. You look at
I got played by an 8-year-old.
And Matthew's more authoritarian than I thought he would be too.
Yeah, like, totally.
And I think that's just, you just start figuring out as you get into it more. And it's not like, I think this is the hard thing is parents will often too, and people in general, like when we get a label on ourselves, we'll be like, oh, I'm so bad. There's so many negatives. It's like, there's good things about that too. Like, don't just fully focus on like, I failed or I'm bad or whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
I think it's kind of like the Enneagram, which we've talked about before, but like, it's so easy to like say, oh, this is so negative. Like, with my 6, right? Like I'm a 6.
If you don't remember that, that's personality.
Yeah. So if you go back to like
personality type and personality.
Yeah.
Like we did the highlighting different personality tests and an Enneagram is one of them that does numbers profiling you.
Yeah. And then each number is assigned with different characteristics. And it's just a guideline, but it's so easy on that to be like, oh, this is so negative. Like my type is so negative because you only highlight those negative things in your head.
Yeah.
So with parenting styles, I feel like it's the same type of energy sometimes. Like it's not very often I get like a pat on the back for, wow, you're such a good, permissive, gentle parent. Way to be authoritative there in that moment. Like people don't tell me that. Be like, girl, you got to buck up and you got to have more boundaries for your kids. And that's all I get. Like, you're laughing because you know it's true. Yeah. No one's telling me a way to be sensitive to their needs and have empathy for your child. Like they'll be like, dude, your kid walks all over you. What was your problem? I'm like, yeah.
So I think it's just more
don't beat yourself up. Like not there. Yeah. Just know your strong points. Know where there's progress.
Again, different personalities, different strengths. This is fine. This is not it. It's all about information. Not for 6, apparently. information is meant to empower, not to disempower, right? So like, don't use it to squash yourself and be like, I'm a terrible human being. Use it to make sure that it empowers you to then go and choose what you want to do with it. Choose to know like, okay, these are my tendencies. So then this is what I am going to do with it moving forward. And I think that's the difficult part people get hung up on, is they use it to undermine themselves instead of to empower themselves. So,
and I have gotten better over the years at, realizing like, hey, there's room for growth here. And then like recognizing, instead of doing this, I'm going to be a little firmer. Instead of, like.
But you know what? You can never say your baby's never emotionally feel safe with you. That is the beautiful thing with permissive, like, and that's where, again, there's always
sometimes they feel a little too emotionally safe.
That's why there's balance. That's why there's balance in all this. But
just laughing at certain conversations I've had just this week. So
yeah, you had some fun ones, melted cheese. So that's just those are the different parenting types. Neglect is the last one. Unattending, that's a different ballgame altogether. So the authoritative is the one we're looking for, with the balance between you have expectations, you also are taking time to acknowledge their needs, right? And you're not rigid. And I think this is where it is hard, guys. Nobody's not saying it's not hard. Like, to make sure, because after I stepped in with anti-time, and I even was like to Mattson, like, was I too rigid? And he's like, no, that one you were reasonable on, because you gave negotiation points, but not negotiated.
But like negotiating with my kid is
negotiation points that I had predetermined, not negotiating. And
he needs to go work for the government. Like 100%.
Now. No, your kid is way too smart.
Like
your kid's.
We're gonna send him to Israel, and he will fix conflicts.
But then that's the other thing is, like, with Adeline, I'd probably be a little bit more open to negotiation because she has a different personality. Anson, you give him an inch, you give him a mile. He's like, if you give him Moose a muffin, he'll want some jam, or a mouth a muffin. Like, he sees tiny inlets and he's like, I got this.
I got this. And he's like, I am in control.
He can take anything.
If you go back to the Enneagram, he's a type 8, which is very like in control. Like,
yeah. So I think that's the thing to know too, like different flexibility, different tactics, and different rigidity for different children. I was
just going to say that. Yeah. And watching my kids at different ages too. Like, I have to parent Adeline different. Like, I was kind of laughing, like Tay and Mattson, right? Like with Banks is a year old. Like, they're going to have to parent him differently 100%. At 13 than they will at a year old. Like, 100%. And I'm at that
even
point
at
now.
4 or 2, like, because Banks doesn't understand no. So we giggle. We shouldn't giggle when we say no. We're like, no, Banks, no. And he's doing something silly.
Yeah.
And we just go and take it from him. That's very different from a 3-year-old knowing the word no.
Yes.
And
like, as kids progress, like, you will need to kind of shift your parenting styles a little bit sometimes.
Your rigidity needs to shift with your flexibility.
Yeah. Like, I have had to work on that this week, just even for scheduling, like as parent, like working on figuring out what's going to be better for my kids for scheduling and setting my expectations. How can I have a balanced way to do this? Like, where are our boundaries? Where are our expectations without being too gentle? Like, and I'm having to shift it. So.
Well, and it's interesting too, because the more they expect as a teen, the more that they'll demand from you and the less they'll appreciate. So then you have to shift it even more. So it's just remembering different stages and different personalities are going to determine what you need to pull on. And that's why we're saying, like, authoritative is good, because it's that balance between the two. If you have boundaries, you have expectations, but are you super rigid with it? Are you working with it? Are you flexible-ish kind of? And that you should range in that zone.
Right.
It's really hard, guys. So don't beat yourself up.
Yeah. I am the perfect example of this, obviously. My child was screaming about melted cheese on cheese.
I love it. So we talked about the melted cheese one, but if you think about it, even for like what this would look like for like Banksy, right? Banksy's 1 year old. And when he's like sad about something and not getting to play in the trash, like that happened the other day. He was really mad at me that I wouldn't let him play in the trash can. Yes, this is my daily problems. And I was like, I know it's hard, baby, but no, you do not get to play in the trash, my love. Like, that you can play with this or this. Like, gave him other options. And he was really ticked, guys. He was at me because I wouldn't let him play in the trash can.
How dare you?
Dare you do? So that's the balance. So did I let him play in the trash because it's absolutely foul?
No.
Any parent can see that though, right? Yeah. So then this is where, like, some of these you're like, well, that's a no-brainer. You're not gonna let your kid play in the trash.
But at the same time, in that situation, and this happened after the cheeseburger incident too. I remember I was in line with my dad at California Disney, and we're in line at the Cozy Cone getting ice cream. And I had talked to him about, like, Dad, something I know with Anson is you have to give him options. And so, like, you have to break it down. And then instead of being so authoritarian on things,
they have a choice.
It's my way or the highway. We're done. I was like, you have a choice. Like, you pick your consequences. Like, you choose your own adventure book. Like, but you still have to give choices within these parameters that you're comfortable with. So, like with Bakes, digging in the garbage can, obviously that's not a safe option. It's a disgusting option.
That wasn't an
So
option
you give
at
him
all.
2 other things. Like you can play with this doll or you can play with this car, you know, like give him something else.
Well, and if you wanted to explore an item, because I even pulled out one of his drawers that he specifically has in the kitchen that he's allowed to dig through. So it's like, you got a drawer here, you can go to your drawer, or you can go to your toys. Like, do one of these ones.
Yeah.
That's fine. So you're trying to like amend or give options so they feel empowered, because that's what people are looking for when they're trying to gentle parent. They're trying to empower their child, which is great. However, I'm not empowering my child to play with the trash. Like,
no, that's disgusting.
It's super gross. Like,
and there are people that are like, oh, but my child knows what's best for them and I'm just going to let them explore their own needs. And it's like,
what? Where do they know that?
How would they know that?
They're Banks, if he thinks he knows the best for him, he would be climbing on the stove when it's burning hot. Like, or climbing into the oven or climbing into the dishwasher.
And like Anson, our argument was balanced around, or not balanced. It was focused around, he needed protein. We had been at Disneyland. He'd already done 20,000 steps. We were on day 3.5. Like the kid needed protein.
Him with grouchy.
He was grouchy. And so I was like, this is not an option, right? Like you need protein. Here are your 2 options. You eat the chicken from the salad or you eat the cheeseburger. Yeah. Like those were options. It's kind of like Banks.
Yeah,
like,
you had different ones.
You don't let them go roam around and go touch the stove. It's not safe. Like, but I think it's just really how you present that information and helping them identify, like, what are you feeling? And then still hold your expectations, which is the hard part sometimes.
Yeah. I think, and that's the key, is you're identifying what they need and you're still not going to cross that boundary. And I think as parents, that's where sometimes they know what they need. Like, a less gross option would be like, Banks loves to take Koa's toys, you know, like that's, and then Koa and him get in a fight. And that's just not good for our house, because then they're fighting over toys.
The dog's growling, Banks is growling back.
They're pulling at each other's hair. It's just, it gets him, aka Banks is pulling at Koa's hair. It just gets messy, you know?
Yeah.
So like, so then that's where, no, that's not the option right now. Your option is to go pick a different toy,
right?
Not the one brother wants, you know, like sharing. And this is why we care. So then you're teaching your empathy on top of showing empathy to both of them.
Yeah.
And that's really good modeling too.
Yeah. Which is so great.
So the key to this, though, is you're naming the feeling. Like, I know you're frustrated. I know it's hard. I know whatever. Like you get it, right?
Let's dive into this a little more too. Like, let's go into like the how.
We'll do the tools in just a second. But like summarizing our application of what we just said, it is a lot of like naming the feeling and supporting the feeling and being safe to say it. But you're still saying, this is my boundary, right? Like if you take Anson with his protein, it's like, buddy, and you saw me do it. I was like, no, you're so mad. I get that. And that totally makes sense why you're frustrated, because you don't want to do this. However, this is still the expectation. I still need you to pick between the 2 proteins or this will happen. Like this is, you're choosing the next part of your story, but you can totally be mad. You can totally be frustrated now. Like that emotion is
identify
valid.
the feelings.
And like let them feel that feeling. Like you should be frustrated as long as you're being respectful. And that's where
he wasn't. That was
it gets different. Then
and then he lost ice cream.
And then he lost ice cream because of this, right? And that's where name the feeling and then support that feeling with like the safe environment. You can express it as long as you are appropriate in how you express it.
Yeah.
But you still have to maintain these expectations that I'm upholding. Just like Banks, you can be mad that you don't get in the trash can, but you can't get in the trash can.
Yeah.
You know,
that is disgusting.
Totally fine. You're mad about that, but that's gross. So it's not happening either way, but be mad. That's fine. Be mad. And then do you want to what do you want to calm it down with? Right. And that's kind of, as a parent, what we're looking for. That's empathetic. Make sense?
I like that.
So the tools that we have, the 2 that I learned that I really like, reflective listening is number 1.
Okay.
And I think you mentioned this one last time, saying like you love reflective listening.
I do love reflective listening.
Why do you love it so much?
Because it helps both your expectations be presented in a gentle way, where you're also feeling the children's feelings.
Yeah.
So it's like, I understand that you're feeling this way. What can we do about it? Or I hear that this is what's happening to you. How can I help you? Or like, and then just like taking that time. This is something even in like a corporate standpoint or any form of relationship, like reflective listening is so key, because
this is therapist talk 101.
Yeah. I'm like, reflective listening allows people to be seen and to engage and to create those connections. Like
it perpetuates conversation as well.
Yes. I was listening to a podcast a couple weeks ago, and they had talked about micro moments of connection. And so he was saying that 7 seconds is all it takes to get that micro moment of connection. And so it was another therapist, and he was talking about how it doesn't take much. Like you can be at the grocery store and you can like just through reflective listening be like, talking to the cashier, like, oh, it sounds like you're having a hard day. I'm really sorry. You create that connection, and then it shows humanity. It shows love. It shows connection, that you actually care.
Yeah.
I love it, though.
It shows like an emotional IQ as well. Like I see, I perceive you, I understand you. And that's the point. So the key phrases we were taught that really, really work well, and they don't sound super scripted, is like, it sounds like when Anson was angry, sounds like you're really frustrated right now. Dude, I get it. Like, and it takes 2 seconds. I get why you're frustrated. It'd be really frustrating for me too. So breathe for a second, take your moment, and then we'll talk about it. And like, that really helped calm him down throughout the whole thing. Or, I'm hearing this, or is this what you mean? Like, and that people, or
another one I've heard recently, like, is, can you explain that to me more?
Yeah.
Like, and I really like that. Like, oh, you're listening enough that you want me to do that. Really?
Yeah. If Mattson used that on me, that would actually
really. I liked it though.
So like, just remember different personalities
to
suss it out, because that one makes me really mad.
Okay. Yeah, and that's funny though. Yeah,
but that's what, and I was like, and some of these too, like, if I do like, it sounds like with Mattson, or like, I feel like, then he automatically gets set off too, because therapy, right? Like, so that I have to do more.
Well, there was even one the other day when you had responded with me like, oh, it sounds like you're frustrated with that. Do whatever makes you happy. And I was like, girl, like, we are sisters, and you don't give me that.
Exactly. Like, so like my family, I can't get away with reflective listening. That's
it can't be scripted.
No, I have to do a lot of like, dude, you're pissed. I get it. Like,
and I feel like that's more in a natural tone where it goes. Yeah. And with the kids, like, I'm really sorry that happened to you today, buddy. With Anson.
Yeah. Like, or you're super mad right now. That makes sense. So like, just remember, some of the scripts are meant to help you remember to do it, but they may actually trigger people more, which is fine. Just figure out a different way to present it.
Like, I really probably don't use these most of the time. Like, it sounds like, or I hear, like,
I use it in therapy talk.
Yeah. But then as soon as my sister pulls it out of me in real life,
they're like, no, girl.
Heck no. No. Yeah. So.
No, what I do it very naturally, and I think it's just naming the emotion. Like,
and people see that. Like, I think that's one of our things that we are actually naturally good at.
Yeah.
Is just connecting with people and having that reflective listening and listening to what they're going through, and being like, I understand you. I hear you. Like, you are seen.
Or that's really hard. Or you're
oh man, that's
rough day.
Like,
I think how you inflect your tone can also be a reflective listening skill. Like, how you emphasize something, or how you reflect back with your own emotional response.
Yeah.
Creates people to be able to do that themselves.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Love that.
Reflective listening really is a good tool. It just takes practice on, I'm getting hiccups again. Sorry. It just takes practice on how to present it in authenticity to your personality.
Yeah. And it'll differ too. Like, different relationships can take different things. Like Taylor had just said, I may use these canned answers, kind of not canned answers, but like,
they're formalized
in a therapy session.
But I should be formalized.
But like, don't use those with your sister.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or if I use them with Mattson, I get my hiccups.
Yeah, exactly. And with your kids, like my teenage daughter, if I were to be like, it sounds like you're having a really hard day, she would love that,
Yeah, she would.
Like, she would be yeah, but if I were to say to Anson, like, I hear you and I know that you're having a hard time, like, it's totally different.
Yeah.
Totally different kids.
So you got to know what spicy kid you got, or what, like what you got.
Or husbands or whatever. Yeah.
Oh man, spicy tomatoes.
Yeah.
The second one that I absolutely adore, and I
like this one too,
is collaborative problem solving. So this is all based around, like, you both are recognizing that there's a skill that needs to be needed, and you're both trying to work on it together. Instead of you coming in and saying, this is what needs to happen, it's you identifying the problem and saying, what do you think? Like, how are we going to approach this?
I had a hard time with this too at the beginning. Yeah, you did. Just as a helicopter instinct at the beginning, like, it was really hard for me, but I have gotten way better at it.
So talk about that then. How did you progress out of that?
Well, I had my second-born child, and
Answer progressive.
It didn't work. Like, with Adeline, she was so black and white, and I was able to say, like, Adeline, don't do that. Adeline, don't do that. Okay, mommy. And she just wouldn't do it. Or, Adeline, come here. I need you to braid your hair. Okay, mommy. And then I have this, like, free-spirited, curly-headed, ADHD,
boy,
whatever. Yeah.
Crazy pants.
Exactly. Like,
homewrecker.
Climbing everything.
He was number 1. Mine's number 2. Homewrecker.
Yeah, like, had stitches so many times. And it was just a different child. And if I were to tell him no on things, it would just enable him. Like,
he would just do it more.
Yeah. He's like, you tell me no, watch this. Like, and so then it would be, I realized I couldn't do that anymore. And so then I just had to naturally, okay. Like, and I think he was really good for me because it brought out more of kind of like Taylor and I love Hawaii, for those of you who don't know this, but that culture is a little bit more like the ocean is so grounding and it flows and it has this energy that just like ebbs and it flows and it's beautiful in its uncertainty. And I think that raising a child that is a little more spirited, that I was able to use that more.
Well, it just made me think of when I heard this concept from the Hawaiian culture, it stuck with me, and it stuck with me ever since.
I'm laughing because I see what you pulled up.
It's called kahu. And kahu is the word for pet owner.
I'm basically a pet owner with my second. I'm just kidding.
No, my dog, my baby does act like a dog, but I love how they call it many meanings, including, so it means many things, including guardian, protector, steward, beloved attendant, and honored attendant. And when I think about being a parent, that's what I want to be known as. I am their guardian. I am their protector. I am their steward. I am their beloved attendant. I am their honored. It's an honor to be their attendant, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, it's not even about like, they're not a pet, but I feel like when we have these associations and relationships in our lives, we do look at it as an ownership, right? Like that's my husband, that's my dog, that's my child.
Right.
And at the end of the day, it's not my anything. They're working with me. They are aligned with me. And so like Koa, I always raised to be aligned with me. He thinks like me. He's my little buddy. So I make requests of him. I don't make commands. I make requests. I say, Koa, follow mama. Come on. Then he follows mama because he wants to follow me, right? Yeah. He's my buddy. So he's like, yeah, where are we going? What are we doing? But that's how I've always thought like children should be with us, is we should be their honored attendant, their honored guardian, their beloved steward. Right.
And I love that.
Yeah. And this is what this concept is really about. And so when I heard that word kahu, I was like, that's exactly what collaborative problem solving is I am there to be their steward. I have a little bit more wisdom, just like with Koa. I have more wisdom to see, like, don't cross the road with the chicken because you're going to get hit by the car. But I see that's what you want to do.
Keeping them safe. Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. So like we have more wisdom as a parent to see, don't answer like you need protein because you're hungry, baby. Like you need that,
yeah.
To
and
keep
we
your
need
body
him
running.
To
or
realize that.
Yeah. Or I need you to not like play in the trash, baby, because you're going to get sick. Like all these
don't
are
come on the counter because of the stove. Yeah.
Where as a parent, you're doing them because you love them, right? You're not like trying to hurt them. You're trying to keep them safe and teach them and educate them and help them grow. But when you get this word kahu in your head, you're like, this makes sense. They are my beloved little angel that I'm trying to work with, this little person that I'm trying to align our journeys with and help them see that I have more wisdom on this journey. So I need them to follow more of my lead at times than what they want. But how can I get them to follow my lead and not just be like my minion to follow what I want?
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's about want versus lead and guiding.
And I think letting go of that too, like finding validation in your children, like let that go, which was such a helicopter mommy thing.
100%. Your child's not there to validate you, and it is not there to be
like to make you look good.
100%. This is not an accessory. And that's where I think this concept is very highlighting for parents. Your child is a human being with a brain of their own. Treat them as such and give them the honor of that. You may have more wisdom, but that doesn't mean that you get to demand or control them.
Yes. And parenting is, and if we're looking at ourselves as a guardian, as a steward, and like someone help them grow, there's going to be hiccups. Like there's going to be meltdowns at Disneyland.
100%.
But then they're going to be able to navigate these.
Because you're their beloved guardian, you're going to help them navigate.
Yes. And they're learning to trust themselves. So then even later after the meltdown, right, Anson was like, I think I would like some jerky now. Like I would like some protein. Okay, good. You got the protein. As long as you can be kind now, you may stay.
But he understood the guiding of what we were trying to do. And he never doubted that in the middle of it. He just was mad about it.
And I think it was an OCD meltdown too because the cheese wasn't right.
Different. Yeah. I was like, but that's where I think the beauty is like, there's trust there. Yeah. Because you've built that trust of that, like, I'm not guiding you towards something bad, but I do have this expectation. And that's what collaborative problem solving is you're empowering them to make choices. Like Anson still got options on food. Banks still gets options on toys and places
I didn't
to play.
sit there and force him to eat the hamburger. It was
Yeah.
That's, And there's no way that you could do that anyways.
But that's like, not even, forcing is never going to get the results that you want. Right. And that's where it's about empowering with options so they know how to make options and make choices and decisions, but also doing it within the realm of safety, right? Like Banks with the garbage can, that's not an option, but you have two other options that are just as valid, They may not be as flashy as the garbage can to you right now.
But the garbage can is so nice.
Oh my goodness. But it's still valid, right? And that's where they learn how to trust themselves with this approach. They learn how to like work together with others. That's the key. They also learn how to trust leadership and authority figures.
Yes.
We are not here to control. We are here to guide.
Yeah.
And that's the key difference. And that's what I've noticed with a lot of teens that I've worked with and others is if they have a parent who treats them more as like, you're my buddy, you're my person that I trust, and we're going to do this together, they definitely trust authority more than if they have a person saying, you do this, you will do this, and hover and control. They question that a lot more later on.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's good. Adeline and I have a pretty good connection on like on the way that we're able to empower each other. Right. And like, she knows that I trust her and we've got this, but it's been cute because she's been watching Gilmore Girls. And so I think that's a good example sometimes, Lorelai and Rory, of allowing them to trust themselves, to learn how to make choices, to work together. For those of you who've watched Gilmore Girls, and Adeline's so cute because she'll like send me texts. She's like, I love you, Lorelai. Like, that's such an ultimate compliment in some ways.
You did it. Like, oh, you guys are friends.
I did this. Like, she doesn't always love me like that, obviously, but
that's the goal. It's not to always, because even in the show, it shows this ebb and flow of like Lorelai still had expectations for Rory. Rory got mad at her. Lorelai took those hits, but they were still like, Lorelai did not let down her boundaries and her expectations.
Nope.
But she still loved her daughter.
Yeah.
You know,
perfect example of that when she hooked up with Dean after he was married.
100%.
And they didn't talk for a while.
100%. Or she quit Yale. Or, you know, like Lorelai's like, I don't back you up on that. Like,
I don't agree with you.
Yeah. I can't back you up on that. But like, go do what you're going to do.
Yeah.
But, and that's a loving parent that's showing that balance, right? And then when Rory came to her, guess what? Rory came back after Yale and Dean and all the other ones and was like, help me. And then Lorelai was there. Yep. And that's what as a kahu, a protector, a guardian, a steward should be.
Yeah.
And that's what the point of collaborative parenting is or problem solving is empowering with choices and empowering how to do it. And then a lot of it too is asking them like, what do you think? How do you feel? Like, how would you handle this? And then you're using each other to brainstorm, right? Like, and this goes off different ages. Like, I cannot do that with my baby.
No,
I can just say like, what do you feel?
You have to set that foundation
100%.
Because by the time they leave the house, we've all met kids who are incapable of doing those type of things. Like they are incapable of thinking for themselves. So you have to let them be a part of that process.
Yes. And that's the point.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's our little baby.
He woke up.
So let's talk about some of the benefits real fast of reflective listening and collaborative problem solving.
Yeah. So I think the benefits are it creates self-regulation skills. It's causing people to really think about like, this is what I'm feeling. This is why. So if you can reflect back, like Madsen's been funny because he'll like hear me sometimes be like, oh yeah, I didn't even think to name it that emotion right now. But like I'll sit there and be like happy, sad, like, you know, to Banks and just because of my training and they'd be like, yeah, it's probably good to do that. But it's helping Banks learn in the moment, like, these are what you feel. So when you're dealing with your kids that way, it's also helping them to do that.
Yeah.
So it's creating that awareness of emotions and it's creating regulation skills so that your emotions don't determine your behavior.
Which is so pivotal.
You're separating it. Like,
and we really had to work on that when Anson was like 4. His anger was constantly determining his behavior.
Yeah.
And once he was able to identify it, like instead of just
emotion.
like everything was like, I'm angry, therefore I can hit whatever I want. And it's like, no, like let's back up, you know? And it's like, are you actually angry? No, I'm actually hungry. Okay. Like, yeah.
But then you can't do that behavior just because you have this emotion. And that's what we're trying to teach them is behaviors are separate from an emotional experience. You can have both. Like at Disneyland, he was still really nice to me, even though he was frustrated. I was like, you're still doing great with that. Like keep being nice.
But we've had to really work on that.
Exactly.
Your emotions cannot justify your behavior.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The second one is it creates self-esteem. Like they feel like they're being heard and understood, but it also, they feel empowered to make a choice and continue on with their path. And that's really big for a lot of kids. They don't, you know, like, because if you look at some kids, they don't know how to make a choice in life as they like graduate school or what to do with things. And it's because nobody gave them a choice.
Yeah.
So actually having kids do this is helping them.
Which is,
and trust themselves. Yeah. And it's creating healthy social relationships. They see what it looks like to actually support and care about a person so they can mirror that back. They see that empathy was given to them so they can also give the empathy to other people while also having expectations in relationships. Teens get in this one so much where it's like, no, you still need to have an expectation, but you can't just tell them this is what they are going to do. I have that so much where they're like, this is my expectation and they will not cross this line. I was like, okay, like now you're just controlling them.
Yeah.
And you're using it against them instead of saying like, this is what I'm requesting of you. How can we work together to get this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is hard.
That one's an entertaining one.
Oof. Yeah.
Do you feel like you're in a marathon?
Sometimes. The other thing too, I just want to add on this is with the healthy social relationships, there's so much going around, and we had talked before about attachment styles. But if you're able to help them with some of these social relationships from a young age, like it will help them with that foundation, I feel like. So you're helping set up your kids for success.
Again, this all works with teens too. So like no matter what age zone they're in, like these are all good things to model. This is all good things.
Oh yeah.
Even if your kid is grown and 32, like this will still work.
Yes, reflective listening, collaborative problem solving does still work.
It works with everybody.
Yeah.
This should just be
I was talking to our dad the other day, and I was like, no, you did not hear what I said.
Were you doing reflective?
I did do reflective.
Did you do collaborative?
I tried.
He doesn't always collaborate.
But I did be like, I'm hearing what you're saying.
Anyways, I think the summary is to make sure that there's always a balance, right? And that's the hard part. We say this all the time, but just remember that the more you try and think about it in the sense of you are their guardian, you are their beloved steward, you are not the owner, you are not, they are not your accessory, they are not whatever.
They're not your way to find validation. They're not.
Koa is not meant to be controlled. Koa is meant to be loved and adored and requested upon. And I think about that with Banks every day is I'm not here to control or determine his future. I am here to request these things. And certain ones I cannot back down from that request, like him not climbing across a hot stove or whatever that is.
Yeah, playing in the garbage.
Yeah, to protect him. Certain ones will be non-negotiable. Other ones, let's talk about it and solve together, right? Yeah. And that's where...
Like, you don't want to eat the cheeseburger? Okay, find another protein.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
So, think if that's really helped me. Kahu.
I like that.
Yeah. All right.
Well, thank you, friends. Hopefully this is helpful for you guys. Don't forget to find us on social media through Honey Counseling. And you can message us if you have any questions or things you want us to talk about. We appreciate all of our listeners and the community. And thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, we're done.